Okay, I've started the stream.
You want me to go turn the banner on?
Yeah, if you don't mind, turn the banner on, Lindsay. And let me test. Let's go on the live page and see if that actually works. Feel free to message me. And Q, feel free if you don't want to chat like with audio. Feel free to just like type something in our other live chat, which is just messaging. So you don't have to be using a microphone if you don't feel like doing that. We totally understand if you just want to kind of watch and not have to talk or anything. And that goes to anyone else who's watching on YouTube. If you want to join us on Discord, hit that join on Discord link that you see on makeswift.com/live and hang out with us, chat with us, ask questions as I'm working and building. So let's get this party started. So we have a theme for the new month of November called New Template November. Who else? I hear, is that Feker? Do you have your microphone on? Or your, is that Q? Okay, cool. Appreciate it. I think I can still hear it somewhere. Okay. Got it. Did it for myself. There we go. Perfect. Yep. I got you muted, Q. So if you need to chat, just do it on the message chat. Okay, cool. So we have our theme this week is New Template November. And these live streams are meant to be me, you kind of just watching me building our templates that we put in our library using just Makeswift. We might do some things like rebuilding sites that you find online, popular sites like Apple's website or other sites. So we might kind of change up what we do during the live stream. But again, this one today is going to be me building out one of our brand new templates that I've been working on over the last couple of days. So I am right now in Figma, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with this now very popular design product. And I have been working on just kind of a simple layout with some colors. Haven't gotten too detailed with graphics or anything like that, but kind of just working on the layout of a template that we have here. And this template is actually going to be geared towards startups, new companies, things like that. Any of our templates, they might have a design or kind of a theme that goes with them, but you can take any of those templates and quickly change the text, and you can really make it towards any industry, any kind of size company as well. So again, this one's more focused on startups, so you might see some text and things that apply to startups. But again, take it and do what you want with it. So again, this is the design. It's a pretty standard. Turn on your video, my video on, or? Oh yeah. I'll turn on my video for Discord so you can see me do things. Okay, so let's get to it. Alrighty, so I'm gonna go and I'm gonna set up a new site. Gonna call this one Bootstrap. Let's see. There we go. Don't need to look at this now, but cool to see it works. Okay, so I got the site created. I'm gonna go ahead and add a page. These are the templates. So basically you're gonna see this new template be put in here. So let's see, I'm going to start with a blank page. Really just built this all from scratch. There we go. So we're now in here. So let me just look back. I'm gonna kind of be hopping back and forth between Figma and Makeswift. Get this, okay. Alrighty, so I'm kind of just getting a feel for what I need to add. So first thing I'm gonna do is add my colors. So I have all my colors you can see on the right side here. First thing I'm gonna add is actually this dark blue color. And I'm gonna do my best not to be presenting and just lightly talking as I'm doing things. So I'm gonna add, actually first I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drop in box, and this is gonna allow me to kind of access my colors. So I'm gonna click on box, I'm gonna add a background layer, and now I'll have a color picker that I can now start adding my colors via this picker. So let's add this first color, and start adding all of our other colors. There we go. And all these colors that I'm adding are in the site colors. So basically as I'm creating new pages or needing to make updates across multiple pages, oops, I can quickly change them from right there. So these are all accessible by all the pages in this one site that I've created. Let's see, what are the colors? All right, cool. Looks like, actually I have this one more blue color. Where'd you go? There you are. Okay. And then I'm going to also add black and white because those are always good to have. Awesome. So those are my colors. And I could also add page colors, but I'm just going to keep them site colors for now. And I'm also, if you go back and look at my design, the entire page is this dark blue. Might look like a black, but it's a dark blue. So I'm going to make the page, so I'm going to use breadcrumbs, go to page, and I'm going to make the background this dark blue. So it should be this color. Yeah, this was black, this one's blue. Okay. All right, now we can start dropping more things in here. So I'm going to start working on this top section, and I'm just kind of eyeballing it to see how I want to break this up into different sections. So I'm probably going to make this navigation its own full width section, or its own section basically. So I've already dropped the box in here. I'm going to go ahead and call this one navigation. Call it whatever you'd like. I'm going to drop another box in here, and this is kind of a key step that we kind of tell our users to do, that you want to drop essentially 2 boxes per section. You want to have your one box, that's like your full width. You know, if you want to have a background color in there, that's where you'll put that. And then the inner box is going to be what makes the content stay at a maximum width. So you'll see that if once I start dropping content in here, it's not going to go all the way to the edge of my very large browser. So now I can start dropping things into this one. So I'll take my navigation component, drop it in there. And now I can start adding some links to here. So I'm going to add just one link to start off. We'll just call this one link. I'm going to go ahead and style this one first. So I want to make this a clear link. I don't want a button color behind it. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a font as well. So let's go ahead and pick our fonts and add those to the site. So when you click on that, I'm going to go ahead and open this and select my fonts. I'm just going to use one font in this site at the moment. Maybe I'll feel like changing it up later. And for this one, I'm going to use a font called Enter, and this is all from Google Fonts, so these are all free to use. Click the checkbox, add, and I'm going to leave it regular checked, and I'm going to add bold. So I'm going to have just 2 fonts that I'm adding here. Okay. Okay, so we've added that font. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm now going to select that font. You'll see a very slight change in there, but it did happen. And we're going to make this font, let's make it 16 pixels. And for the text color, kind of starts off with this like default white and black you'll see here, but these are not actually colors that are in my palette that I've added. So I'm going to make sure I connect it to my site color. So I'm going to select that white there. Cool. So now what I can do is when I add new links, it's actually going to duplicate the styles from that first one. So that's why I kind of added and styled the first one before I added more of them. And now I'm just going to kind of put in some, placeholder text here. What did I add on here? Pressing about. And some of these links are going to be internal pages that I'm also going to create for this template. So again, I'm creating this home page, but I'm also going to create multiple pages that kind of work along with this page. Basically a site template, even though they're more of like pages that you add individually, but they'll work together. And this last one, I'm gonna have, I'll say login. So these last two, like support and login, they might actually be external links that if you have an application or a help desk somewhere else, help center, those will just be external URLs that you can link that to. And the last one, I'm gonna have a sign up link, and we're gonna style this one a little bit differently. I'm gonna make this one an actual button. Let's give it a background color first. You can see what I'm doing. Change the text color to black. Going to make it a round pill. Gonna make it all caps. Change the bold. I'm gonna make that one looks a little large for my taste, so I'm gonna make that a little bit smaller. Let's see, here's where you kind of start playing around. Let's see, I'll go with 14. Looks pretty good. Okay. So that covers navigation at the moment. I don't have a logo, so I'm not gonna pop one in right now. I'll kind of leave it as a placeholder. I'll go ahead and put the alt text. You kind of always want to do that. Helps out with your Google scores and your performance ratings. And you can make the logo link as well. For the gutter, I'm going to make the gutter a little bit smaller so it's not so much space between the links. So I'll make it like maybe 5. Again, kind of just eyeballing all this. And I'll set the mobile menu later when we start working on mobile styles for that. Cool. So we have a navigation bar. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take this navigation box that I dropped in here. I'm going to duplicate it, Command D. And the reason I'm doing that is because I already have a box inside of here, and that means I'm kind of ready to go. So I don't have to do a lot of those things over again. Before I do that, actually I'm going to make the inner spacing on the left and right a little bit bigger. So that way, if for some reason someone's monitor is a little smaller, they won't be having the content pushed up to the side like that. So let's make this 30. And then for this one, for this hero, I'll go ahead and actually call this hero. Let's see, let's make the padding on top and bottom a good bit larger. Again, kind of eyeballing it right at the moment. We'll change it up later. Let's go back to our design. Okay, so now this is our hero section that I'm going to be recreating, building in Makeswift. So I'm going to have a box for the text. I'm going to leave just a space for the image on the right, I believe. That's what I think I'm going to do. And again, we can always change this as we're building it. Okay, so I have this one box already. That's, our hero. I'll go ahead and name this one too. I'll call this one our hero content box. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drop another box inside of here. And this box is going to be, again, just for I'll call this one hero text. And I'm naming all these, not sure if you've noticed, but basically when you hover on the breadcrumbs, you'll see the names of all these boxes. So it just makes it a lot easier for me to know where I'm placing things. And I'm going to put an image inside of not this box we just dragged, but I want to make sure it goes to hero content. So it's to the right. So here we go. So now we have 2 columns essentially. Go ahead and make this with the image full width. And I'm going to select this hero content box and change the row gap. And you'll see as I do that, it's kind of opening up the space between the 2 columns, basically. And that way they're never going to run up into each other as well. And again, I'm kind of eyeballing this. If I want to take Figma and kind of see exactly the number. So there's about 80 pixels between them. And I made it 60. And we also have, I'm going to get rid of the inner spacing there. Yeah, I'll go ahead and make it 80 as well for now. Again, we'll change it if we need to. Okay, so let's start dropping in some content onto this left side. We have some text. So text, we can't see it at the moment because it's all black. So first thing I'm going to do is make it white. Okay, and we just have some placeholder text in here. I'm going to go ahead and actually copy the text I have over here. And I like to keep my text blocks a little bit separate from each other. So I'm going to go ahead and just remove this paragraph text. I'm going to duplicate this text block. And I'm just going to paste that back in there for now. That way I have a little bit more control between spacing rather than just using enter to kind of create that spacing. So I like to kind of keep them separate. You can keep them together if you want, more of a preference. And then I'm going to drop a button as well. So kind of get all the little pieces in there. And then we can start styling. So I'm going to make this button green. It's going to look kind of similar to the one up top. Keeping my styles similar to each other. I think actually black was in the middle. Let's go ahead and select our fonts. So we have enter, let's make it bold, make this one a little bit bigger, all caps. And I'm gonna make it a big button and make it pill. There we go. And now I can drag it to the left and make it left aligned. Okay, so let's start putting the text and styling this text over here. Oh, already got it in there. So if I go back to Figma, let me see what I have as far as my styles go. So heading 1 is 66 pixels large, and I'm using semi-bold. I can always actually go back and add that as well. So I'm gonna make it enter, make it nice and big. Let's see. Welcome Drew, and welcome Bernie. Feel free to chime in with any questions you might have, or if you wanna, basically text those questions inside of the live stream chat, you can do that too. But welcome to the live stream. You haven't missed too much. Okay, so like I said, I added bold, but I'm gonna go ahead and actually change and add another one. I'll add semi-bold, just give me a little more flexibility. And again, you can do this at any point you're designing your site. Add new fonts, remove fonts. Okay, so you know what I'm gonna do actually is I'm gonna go ahead and let's remove bold, because it seems like it doesn't really make that big a difference between bold and semi-bold, and I don't want it to be as bold. And it also saves on performance when you're loading in your site. Okay, so we have this one done. And what I'm gonna do now, and this might be early for some people, I kind of try to do it as soon as I can, but it's just preference again, is that I'm gonna add typography. Actually, first I'm gonna make this an H1. I'm gonna go and add some typography. Nope, looks like we got a question. Yeah, so Alan asks a very good question as to why I did not add all the fonts that were visible when I was adding my font weights here. Let me go back here and you can see that. So I have, what is this? 9 fonts to add right now. Some fonts include 18 different styles, including all the italics. And the reason I'm not adding more than a couple or a handful is that you'll see down here we have a load time indicator. If you add a lot of fonts, that's adding a lot more files and essentially taking longer for your site to load when a new user comes to your site. So you only want to add a handful of fonts, ones that you know you're going to use. Again, it's not a rule that you can't do it, but we wouldn't recommend adding too many because you're going to make your loading time very slow. So good question, Alan. Thank you. Okay. And again, you could also add multiple font families too. So I'm adding just one, but we can add one for headers, one for the actual body paragraph text as well. And again, just keep in mind, the more font families you're adding, the more font files you're also adding. And I'm gonna just give this one a little flare, and we're gonna just make this green text just to give it a little more excitement. Gonna add a little more spacing between the text, the header text and its bottom text. And one thing I kind of quickly did, you guys saw before, was I actually switched the header tag up here. So this is where you'll switch to H1, H2, H3, or if it's just a paragraph, you would just click that and it would just select none of them and make it a paragraph. Like it is right here. Okay, so for this one, let's go ahead and add, oh, actually I forgot I was gonna add the typography. So I've added these styles. I've added the color, we've added those, anything we want to style for this particular heading style. So now we're gonna add a typography, and I'm gonna go to create typography here. And we're gonna call this one heading 1. You can call it whatever you'd like. And now what this does is it saves it in our site settings, essentially, that now I can select this and apply it anywhere on any page in this site. So if I wanted to make, one word in here, have that style, I could do that too. So really cool feature that you can use to, again, just makes things easier if you're editing multiple pages or multiple blocks of text down the line. And again, maybe you don't want to start adding typography until you actually finish more of your site, but I feel pretty confident with where I'm going with this, so don't mind adding it now. So let's select enter, gonna leave it regular, gonna make sure it's got the white selected, which it does. Okay, cool, so that one is good to go. I'm gonna increase the line height a little bit, and I'm gonna make the color in this one actually a little bit less opaque. Just that way it's not as white as above. And I'm going to go ahead and create a typography style for this as well. Call this paragraph. Let me go back to my designs to make sure I'm actually doing what I designed. So, okay, so I did for paragraph, but this actually is a little bit larger. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to switch back. I'm going to make this, let's get rid of some of this text so it's not quite so large or so much of it. And then I'm going to make this 24 pixels, which is what I had in my designs. And I'll get even more of a little more of this text. And again, this is all just placeholder text. And now what I can do is I can actually, you'll see that it turned yellow. So I'm going to create a different new typography style based on this one, but it's going to be new. And we're going to call this one, I'm going to call this one sub header. So this will probably be for any text that's like underneath, large headers, things like that, probably at the very top of the page. Go ahead and hit save with that one. Okay. So it looks a little bit more like what we have in our design. Okay, perfect. So hero is almost done, minus the actual graphic here, which I'll create later. Another thing I'm going to do, actually, I see that they're not actually the image and the content on the left. I want them to be vertically centered. So I'm going to select the box that's housing both the image and this box over here, the hero text and the image. And I'm going to select the vertical align center. So that way they'll always be centered. All right. Next thing to add is this row of logos here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a new section. Actually, I'm just going to take this navigation. I'm going to copy and paste it, and I can drop it down below. I'm going to delete navigation. And now I can use this box to put my logos in there. So I'm going to start by dropping an image. I'm going to go ahead and actually select a logo. And first thing I need to do is actually need to put in my images. I've got them, most of them ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder first. Let's name this one the name of the actual site so I know where to find things. I'm going to go into this folder. And then let me navigate to my, actually, you know what? I can just do it up here, new files. Oops, 1 second. Oh, actually I have 2 bootstraps in here. Oh, I'm sorry, actually Bootstrap is the name of another site I already created. Whoops, forgot about that. So I need to call this one something different. Okay, so I actually have a bunch of logos that I've created. I need some white ones here. I'm just gonna put all these in there. So these are all just very well-known logos. They are loaded in, and I'm gonna select just kind of a random one. I'll select Airbnb. Actually, I'll double click to select it. I'm going to give it a size, something like that. Again, kind of eyeballing it. And I'm gonna give it a opacity, let's say about 50%. And now I'm actually going to duplicate, actually I'm gonna copy and paste. So I'm gonna copy the logo, paste it right next to it in the box. When I say right next to it, I mean like on the far right side at the moment. Drop it in there, so now we have 2 of them. And now what I can do is if I select this one and then just hit Command D or Control D, it'll actually know now to paste them next to each other in the same row. So I'm gonna go ahead and just leave 6 logos here. And I'm gonna start replacing them with the other logos. Again, just kind of randomly selecting. And again, the reason I did one logo first and styled it was that now by just replacing these other ones, I don't have to worry about styling them as much. So it's just a little bit easier to kind of, you know, do things with one and then copying it and duplicating it to reuse it. That is definitely, I think, the best way to work with almost everything in here. If you've already created it one time, don't start from scratch. Reuse what you got. Let's see, we'll just use Google for the last one. Okay, cool. So now I can go in here if I want to. I can kind of like tweak these, you know, try to get the sizing a little bit more similar to each of them, but they actually look pretty good as they are. They are clearly not vertically aligned, so I'm going to fix that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and actually take this content and just make it a little bit less wide. Again, you might not want to do that. I'm going to add a little column gap as well, just to make sure they don't ever touch each other. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, that looks pretty good, I think. And again, that's kind of the benefit of also having your sections be different, is that I can control the width of each one. So I'm going to call this one logos. And if I want to, I can make, again, you saw me make this box smaller than this one. So again, I can make it the same, make it smaller. That's the benefit of keeping it flexible that way. Okay, so next thing we have in our design. So kind of this feature video that you can put on here. So pretty simple, straightforward section. See, I'm going to take, again, same thing, take this top box, repeat it, and delete the navigation. I'm gonna name this box first. I'm gonna call it feature video. I'm gonna add spacing to it, like I did with the hero section. All right. And I'm gonna drop, actually I'm gonna copy this text. I'm gonna drop it in here. I'm gonna center line it, make it an H2. And let's see, and just give it some temporary text for now. And I don't want this one to be as big, so I'm gonna make it smaller. And let me see what I use up here. So I use 48 pixels. So Miguel asked, why did I copy and paste some of the things while duplicating other things? It's also kind of a preference. So a lot of times I'll duplicate if I know I want them to be next to each other or on top of each other. And I'll copy and paste if I want to basically take something from one location of the page and place it in a totally different location. Again, I could also have done this. I could have actually taken this navigation section, duplicated it, so now it's below, and then grab it and move it down. So really, it's up to you. There's no actual difference of what they do. It all does the exact same thing in the end. But thank you, Miguel. Good question. So I said this was 48. Gonna make that one 48. And let's see. Actually, I want to, yeah, so make this one 48. Actually, you know what? We never actually applied our typography style to this one. So I'm gonna make sure I apply the whole thing. And make this green again. Okay. So basically what would have happened is this would have looked more like this. And then I would have changed it. And you'll see it turns yellow. And like I did with the paragraph, we'll create a new typography and call this heading 2. And I'll actually want to be changing the line height as well. Can't really tell at the moment, but it will make a difference down the line. And I'm going to go ahead and update to make sure it has all that new information for any time I want to use it for other headers. Okay, I'm going to give this a little bit of bottom spacing in preparation for the video. And for the video, so you'll see that I kind of started doing some design to behind the video. Didn't quite actually get to the finished design, but I'll work on that as well and show you what I do. Kind of give you a little extra behind the scenes of behind the scenes. So first I'm going to do is I'm going to drop a box in here. I could just drop the video component if I'm not going to have any sort of design behind it, but because I do want to add some elements and some background layers, I'm going to add a box first. And again, make sure it's in this content box. And we'll call this one video background. And then from there, I'm going to go ahead, I'll add some inner spacings. I know I'm going to need it. That's how I'm going to get my background layers to kind of peek out through it. I'll be adjusting it because I'll definitely need to do that. But just for the moment, I'll just give it a little bit of a different, or some inner spacing. And then I'm going to take an actual video component and drag that in here. And I'm going to make the video component itself full width. And again, it's got that spacing, so it's not quite the full width matching the rest of the content. And I will leave that for now. and we'll come back to that later. So video section is done for the time being. Let's see what's next in the design. So next we have our feature kind of like callouts. And so again, I'm gonna make this another section. And for this, I'll actually just go ahead and duplicate this section here. And I'm gonna go ahead and just delete the video. And these right here, I don't need those in there. And let's call this one feature list. And I'm gonna adjust some of the spacing as well, because I don't want it to be so far away from the video. We might have to adjust it once we actually put content in there. Okay, so let me again go back to my design and kind of mentally map this out. So again, pretty simple four column in 2 rows. So I'm gonna try to keep these all actually in one single box. I think I can do that with each of these features being their own box. So I'm gonna start by dropping in that one box for the one single feature. And then I'm gonna start adding the content. So that'll include the image, that'll be for the icon. And for the icon, I have it at, what size? Got it about 70 pixels. See up here, 70 pixels wide and tall. So I'll do the same here. Go ahead and make it 70 preemptively. I'll go ahead and add the image, might as well. Go ahead, I'm gonna create a new folder inside of this folder. Kind of help me keep things a little cleaner. Call it icons. Probably should have created one for the logos, but that is okay. You can always do it later. Let's add some files. I'm gonna go back out here to my template icons. And I have actually found these on Flat Icon, which is a great resource for free icons, free images. If you use their other service called FreePic, definitely love them. Giving them a shout out because if you use them for free, they want you to attribute them. So definitely want to be playing nice with them. Okay, and I've taken these, I've styled them inside of Illustrator, so they're going to match this template. So you can't actually change the colors with the icons, but again, you can always add your own icons, customize them how you'd like. And I'm actually going to copy and paste. I'm going to copy and paste this one. It's a little bit closer. Right underneath the image. I'm going to copy and paste this text too. Just go and get the content in there, or general content. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of spacing underneath the icon. Let me go back to my Figma document and see how much space there is. I do 30 pixels between that and 10 pixels between the two text blocks. Got 30, and I'm gonna make this one 10, just like it was in Figma. So I double click, I'm gonna go into text mode and call this one, let's say this is a feature, and I'm using 24 pixels for this one. So let's make this 24. Go ahead and make it 1.4 line height. And the reason I'm changing the line height, for anyone who's not familiar with line height and what that means, basically the spacing between the lines of the text. So if your text ever breaks and forms multiple lines, the line height is what controls the space between them. So if it's too low, for example, if this one I make it like 1.1, it's very tight. So I want to keep that. For smaller text, you actually go larger usually, and for larger text, you want to go smaller. So you'll see up here, that's why this one is at 1.1. So that's kind of the basic rule of typography when it comes to line height. And I'm gonna take this, and I'm actually gonna apply the paragraph that we created earlier. So I'm gonna click it right here. It's a little hard to see, but you'll see it's this paragraph. I'm gonna center line that. And for this feature, I'm gonna make this an H3. And I'm gonna go ahead and create a new typography style because we're gonna use this in multiple places just on this page alone. So I'll call this one heading 3. All right. And let's go ahead and let's trim some of this text because I know it's gonna be very long when I start putting these boxes next to each other. Cool. So this one feature box is ready to go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to copy. Actually, before I do that, let me do this. Let me rename this other box right around it, like feature list container. That way I kind of know what I'm dropping into what. So I'm going to select this box, which has no name at the moment. I'm going to copy, Command C, Command V. I'm going to make sure I go to the right side. I'm going to make sure it's inside the feature list container. So as long as I'm there, I see that little breadcrumb pop up, then I'm good. I can click and drop it. And now what I'm going to do is, like I did earlier, is I'm actually going to start hitting Command D to duplicate it. And that way it'll duplicate it all in the same row now. And now I'm going to go back to this feature list container. I want to add some gaps between the columns. So I know we're going to need some column gaps. And then I know I'm going to have 4 more below. So I need to add some row gap as well. I'll make that one a little bit larger. Probably something like 60. And again, we'll change it if we feel like it needs to look a little different. And now I'm going to take this box. Let's see, I'll do this actually. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate it again. And you'll now see that I have 6, but obviously we don't want 6, it's way too tight. I'm going to select this content, this feature list container. And you might have noticed this, but you'll see these dashed lines that appear up and down. I'm going to click on the dashed line right here. I'm going to split this row right there. So now it splits it and has a 4 up top, 2 on the bottom. And now I can select this box and just hit Command D again and duplicate it into 4 in that one row. So again, that's how I kind of quickly duplicate the work of 1 into now 8. Again, instead of starting from scratch over and over. And now I can go in here, just kind of grab some random icons, just make it a little bit more finished. I won't do all the text and typography, for that, so don't worry. Don't want to bore you guys too much. Okay. And as a reminder, for anyone who's watching on YouTube, feel free to join us on Discord. You can ask questions directly, post them on the chat. So don't feel like you have to be all in your lonesome watching me work. Okay. Oops. Let's see, which ones have I not added yet? One more. No, it's a game of memory. Which one was it? I think it was this one. Yeah, ooh, I picked right. Okay, so it looks like that section is now done. Cool. All right, it's coming together. Okay, so below that, created kind of this Twitter wall here. Trying to do something a little different. Usually you see the kind of very common testimonials from customers, maybe 3 columns or, 1 testimonial at a time that moves on a carousel. Want to try something a little bit different. Create like a little Twitter wall that you build from scratch. So first thing I'm going to do is let's create a new section. Hop back to Makeswift. And I'm going to take this one. Less stuff to have to delete. It's all about efficiency. Plus I've got my header here. So what our fans are saying. Double click to get back into build mode. You can also use these buttons up here if you want to go back and forth between content and build mode. Let's delete the video. Let's delete this one for now. Let's call this Twitter wall. And we'll call this one Twitter wall container. but I'm gonna need to see what that is later. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do here, you'll see we have kind of what they actually call a masonry grid, which all that means is that the rows aren't actually lined up. Like I'm not pushing down this second row based on the height of any of the actual cards on this first row. They all kind of stack up and kind of fill in the gaps, fill in the space, almost like pavement or like a kind of like a bricklayer might do. So to achieve this, we actually can't, it'll be a little bit different than what we did up here. We have like one row up here. This will actually be 3 columns, and each one of these cards will be stacked on top of each other in the column. So technically the order will be like 1, 2, 3, and then we'll start going to the next column. So a little bit different, but it's kind of a nice little trick you can do to achieve this masonry effect. Okay, so first I'm going to drop in, I'll probably just go ahead and drop in 1 box to surround all of it, and then drop in each box for a column, and then another box for each one of these. So this one will have quite a few boxes, but that's okay. Boxes are free in Makeswift. Don't charge you for them. Okay. Let's see. I'll call this one Twitter Grid. Sometimes just naming your boxes is almost the harder part than the actual building out. And then I'm going to move this box into here. And this one will be grid call 1. Okay. And just for the sake of me seeing the spacing, I'm actually going to go ahead and copy and paste it into Twitter Grid. There we go. Okay, so I at least have some placeholders, and I can call this one. Actually, I'm going to leave these unnamed. Basically, they drop their name because you can't have the same name of an element. So it basically kind of drops it so it doesn't collide with this one. But that's fine, because we'll be deleting those later. Okay, so I'm going to now drop in yet another box inside of here. And this will be the actual Twitter card. I'm not going to name this one because we'll have a background color, so it'll be a little easier to see. So I'll give it a color. Going to give us a color of white. Leave the width at 100%. And I'm going to go ahead and give it a little more interspacing. Let's see, what did I do over here? So I'm using the auto layout feature. So I can see I did 20 and 20 with a gap of 12 between these two things. I was going to have a lot of boxes. Okay, all good. And corners. So I'm going to add, let's say I have a corner radius of 8 pixels. So I'm going to do the same for this. Give it 8 pixels. Okay, I think we're good on the rest of it. So now what I'm going to do, so I'm going to add yet another box. I think I'm breaking a record here for number of boxes I've used in a single section. And this one, the reason I'm adding this box is because I'm going to have the avatar for a user and their name right next to it. If you want to simplify, if you don't want to have as many boxes, you could just have maybe the actual tweet and the, you know what, actually, let's do that. I'm going to change the design. Let's simplify this a little bit. Yeah, let's go ahead and do that on the fly because I feel like I'm getting a little complicated here. So I'm going to kind of reverse the order and remove a few of the things. So I don't need to worry about changing the actual design file. I'm going to do it in Makeswift. That's the great thing about it. You can just kind of figure it out there. So, okay, I'm going to leave this box as I have it with a white background. And I'm going to copy and paste this text here. Let's make it, give it a black. Make it a little bit darker. And let's left align it. And these are going to basically be tweets that people have posted. So this is, again, this is more of a manual way to do this. You're not actually, putting in any sort of API or any sort of embed widget, which you can do if you want to. I know Twitter definitely lets you grab a tweet and literally just embed it onto a page. So you could easily do that with our embed component. This is just kind of a way to do it manually and style it how you want to style it and have complete control over it. And then below this, I'm going to duplicate this text, and we're going to make this one the name of the person and their handle, or you can just do handle, whichever you'd like to do. So maybe we'll just do handle here. No need to do both. We'll just say John Smith, my favorite guy. And I'm going to make this one smaller, and I'm actually going to change the style here and make it a kind of like a lighter, like a gray. And this is one way to do it, by changing the black. A lot of times I'll do that, just use the black I have in there and kind of use different shades of black via the opacity. Or you can also add a whole new color. So if that's something you want to do as well, that totally works. And I'm actually going to delete the spacing below here, or remove it. And I'm also going to drag in a little image here. I want to put the Twitter logo next to the name to the right side. And first thing to do, I actually didn't export it yet, so I'm going to export it from here. Give you some Figma insight as well. So I'm just making this into an SVG. For anyone not familiar with some of these files that I'm using, so a lot of the common files from days of past are JPEG, GIF, PNG. PNG allows you to have alpha transparency around an image. SVG is what you use for vector. So if you want to have a vector file that stays crisp, you never have to worry about it losing any sort of quality, no matter how big it gets, then you want to use an SVG if you have a vector file, and that's going to always keep it looking really good no matter what size you go. Oops. I'm actually going to take that Twitter icon, let me just tweak it a little bit off screen. You know what? I'm going to do this. I actually want to start with that Twitter icon. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Okay, I want to take this Twitter icon. I actually want to go ahead and make it black, because I don't like to start my files being already changed or different. If I can do that inside of Makeswift, I'd rather keep it original. And so by being black, I can change the opacity how I want to change it. So I'm going to go ahead and re-export this. Okay, that's better. And now I can add that into Makeswift. I'll go ahead and put in icons. It should be on the desktop. Let's see. Oh, you know what? Messed up there. Didn't make it a SVG. Let's try it again. Replace one as before. Okay. Now we got it. Okay. There we go. Let's make sure no one's chatting with me. Okay. So like I said, I'm going to change the opacity, make this 0.5. Let's just go a little lower. Actually, what do I have in Figma? That's always the easier way to do it. So let's go back out, see what it was before. Okay, 25%. All right, so let's make that 25%. And I'm going to make it right aligned. And I want to kind of align it vertically with the actual name. So I'm going to make sure all my items are aligned vertically as well. And that obviously that doesn't affect this text up top because it's in its own row. So it only aligns things that are in a row next to each other. Okay, cool. And again, so the reason I added this Twitter icon here, for one, to be more obvious that it's a tweet, but two, you can actually link this and, you know, link it directly to that tweet. So I'm kind of a big believer of, you know, actually linking to where the actual thing got mentioned, or, you know, if you have a testimonial or a, you know, if a customer is using your product, I don't know, kind of a put up or show up. That was not the right thing, but you know what I mean. Okay, again, kind of playing with this now. All right. So that looks pretty good. So I'm going to now delete this box. I'm going to take this one. Okay, so actually, like I said, so these, I don't want them to be, okay, yeah, so this one is actually in a separate box. Excuse me. This one is in a separate box, and the goal here was, again, to down the column. So what I'm going to do is when I duplicate this Twitter card, is to now go down, which is what I want. That's kind of what I want to do. And I'm going to select the box, the grid column. I'm going to make sure I add some row gap. Let me see what I have in Figma. So in Figma I have 30. I guess I'll kind of judge. I'll see what that looks like. I'll leave it as 20 for now. Meshing, and go ahead and remove this inner spacing. Okay. Now I can delete that one. Oh, you know what? Didn't see that happening. I'm gonna make this full width, just so it's always taking up space no matter what. Okay, and now I'm gonna take this column. Oops. Yeah, take the column, copy it, paste it inside of Twitter grid. There we go. Paste it again. Okay, so looks like a mess, but trust me, it works. So we're gonna call this one, what do I call this one? Grid call 1, grid call 2, let's call this one, you probably guessed it, grid call 3. Okay, and now I can select the Twitter grid, and I'm gonna add column gap between these columns. I'm gonna match the row gap that we had before. You know what, so probably I'm gonna go 30, why not? So I just gotta come back in each one of these columns and just adjust it that, oops, and adjust it that way. You know, the cool thing, like you'll see, is again, you'll have different heights of boxes if you want to. So that kind of just shows you what it might look like. Yeah, so kind of a nice little different design. Let's see, it's probably a little bit too much space between them. Sometimes what I'll do is like I'll either completely get rid of the space, maybe somewhere like here, and just have one place that I'm doing the spacing. So sometimes that's a little easier just to have it in one place. Okay. There you go. Starting to look like a real site. Let's make this one bigger. Just tweaking as I go. Again, let's do that here. Let's go ahead and make this be the more primary. Do want that one to be closer. Kind of almost like it's part of the video in a way. Okay, so let's go on to the next section, which is I believe it's our CTA section. Okay. going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy and paste this video section. Paste it down here. Let's delete some stuff. I'll leave that text. And let's call this one CTA, call to action. Spacing back. Okay, now I'm going to take the box that I have in here. Let's see, let's go back to Figma. Okay, so basically I just have text and buttons, so that's pretty easy. So I can just put those in the same box next to each other. Let me copy the text I have here. Get rid of all the spacing, make it full width. And let's go ahead and actually take the CTA box. We'll just call this CTA gradient, because that's what I'm going to add to it. I'm going to make this a gradient. Let's add some inner spacing first. Change the corners. So what do I have it at? I have the corners at 10. Let's make it 10. And let's go ahead and add a background layer. I'm going to make it a gradient. So for the first color, I already got the blue, which is what I want. Second color, I'm going to choose this kind of purplish color. And I'm going to make the opacity and make sure it's 100. And you'll see that now we have our gradient there. And I'm just kind of dragging the direction of the gradient. If I click off, you'll see there it is. So the next thing we need in there is the button, put on the right side. And I'm just going to grab this button, reuse it. Again, reuse what you got. Saves you time. And I'm going to paste it to the right side. So again, I could go above or below, but I'm going to paste it to the right, put it on the same row. And now I'm going to take the button. I'm actually going to make it right aligned. And you'll see I'm actually missing a font, so let's fix that. Make sure it's on semi-bold. I'm going to make this one right aligned. I'm going to make it wider. Let's go ahead and make the font a little bigger for it as well. And now I can select the box that has both the text and the button, vertically align everything, and let's bring the actual column distribution over so that way the text has a little more space. And I'm actually going to take this whole thing and make it just a lot smaller. Let's just do 1,000. Nice and clean. Okay, so that's the startup call to action there. Let's see, might tweak some of the spacing. Just give a little more top and bottom padding. Okay. Not bad. Let's do this again, get rid of that. Okay, I'm gonna keep that 160. So the next thing we have is basically this copyright terms and conditions. Most likely I'm gonna have the CTA in the bottom of every page, so I'm thinking I might just add this line at the bottom. It's kind of a simple footer. Again, we can get definitely more complex, have more links there, but I'm gonna keep the footer of this one kind of simple. But I'm gonna put it together with this CTA below it. So what I can do is I can just take some text like this, copy and paste, and I'm gonna make sure it's below, it's inside the CTA box, but not inside of this gradient box. And that way it won't be inside the gradient, kind of be on its own. And I'll just control the width here myself. So again, you know, leave it how it is at the moment. We can change it once we get the text in there. And I'm just gonna go ahead and copy and paste what we have here. Pretty standard footer text and footer links. Let's make this one much smaller. And I'll make this like 40% opacity. That's a little too small or a little too light. Let's make it 50. Okay. Then just to show these are links, I'm just going to use the green color we have, bring it all the way to full opacity, and do the same with this one. Okay. Cool. Okay. Not too bad. You know, I think I'm also going to go ahead and create a typography style for this because, again, if it'll be on multiple pages, if I want to make a change to that footer text, I don't want to go to every single page and change it. I want to go ahead and have it be done from one page, in one place. I'm going to go ahead and create a new typography. We'll just call this one footer text. And this is going to cover just basically like the white version of it. So again, if I have this green version, you'll see that the green is highlighted yellow to show that it's been changed. Okay. Okay, so page looks pretty good. I'm going to take a quick break and be back in about 10-15 minutes. So stay on if you'd like, and I'll be back soon. All right, back on the stream. Thank you, Q Crane, for sticking around. Thank you, Fikri, as well. I was gonna thank you at the very end, Fikri, as you know the reason I'm doing all of this, but I give all my thanks to my one and only. Yeah. I'm gonna continue. Man, you're just ready to get going, aren't you, Fikri? Not even don't want me to wait at all. Like, can you please start with the template again? All right, no, I'm joking. I'm just getting back. I had to stretch a little. Okay. Oh, no, it should be. Can you hear me, Fikri? Yeah, you can. Yeah, okay. Miguel said my audio was off for some reason, but I think it's on. Miguel, can you hear me? Okay, cool. It might have been maybe it might have been the YouTube video. Really? That's weird. Are you sure it's not like via Discord, or are you sure it's not you? Like you want to get off and come back in? Huh, okay. Okay, we'll just assume it's a Miguel problem. There we go. Hopefully that fixes it, that he came off and back on. Okay, so let's get back to the template for Fikri. Just kidding. Just giving you a hard time. Okay, and like Miguel said, we're recording this live stream, so we'll most likely keep it on YouTube probably as a past recording. But again, we'll plan on doing this at the moment every Tuesday and Thursday. So we will see if that, if we keep up the schedule. Hopefully it's not too aggressive. Okay. Well, sorry, Miguel. Okay, so let's get back to the template. So I think the next thing I'm going to do, I'm trying to think if I should either kind of add some more design elements. I have some ideas of what I'd like to do behind this video. So I think I'm going to switch to that really quickly before I do responsive editing. All good, Miguel. Happens to the best of us. Okay. So what I'm planning on adding behind the video and also including up in this little hero feature up here, I want to add some kind of like shapes that are filled in by just like simple patterns. So maybe like a square that's just like dots, or maybe like, you know, a rectangle or a circle that's made with like kind of zigzag lines. I'm sure you guys have all seen that in different places. So I'm going to do that. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my Illustrator over to this screen. So I'm going to kind of switch up my tools. And, you know, I use Figma for pretty much anything web design related or app design related. But, you know, they have a great, you know, vector, like a tool, like a set of vector tools. But sometimes you just can't beat good old fashioned Illustrator. I think there's definitely some things that Figma doesn't have quite yet, and one of those things is the ability to create zigzag lines pretty easily. And maybe there's a plugin for that, or maybe there's something out there that, you know, allows you to do it more easily, but I guess I'm just old-fashioned, and I'm just going to stick with what I know best. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually I'm going to kind of like recreate my setup that I have inside of Figma. So let's see. So I have a video. So the video is about like 960. So basically I have 1200 pixels of space left and right. That's what the content width is. So I have the left and the right as well as top and bottom around the image to kind of fill it up with some patterns and some, you know, little design elements. So I'm going to do that, recreate it. So I'm actually going to go back to Illustrator. I'm actually going to change this artboard to be 1200 pixels. And what did I say it was over here? This one was 560. Okay, that should be fun then. Oops, too far in. Okay, so let's say 1200 by 800. That should be good for now for me to work in. And I'm gonna give it that blue background color. Which is, let's lock that one in so I don't grab it by accident. And I'm gonna draw another rectangle, and this is gonna be the video. Just a little placeholder for it. And I said it was like 960. And again, this will probably change, or it's actually probably a little different than I even have it inside of Makeswift, but that's okay. Just give it a little placeholder fill. And let's center it. Cool. So this is kind of like my new canvas that I'm working in, so I can add some patterns and whatnot. Let me switch back. Okay. I feel like I should probably say this every so often, but if you're watching us on YouTube, feel free to head over to Discord, hang out with us, chat with us, ask me a question, challenge me with something. Definitely feel free. We're just hanging out here. Okay, so I'm gonna lock this one as well because I don't want to have this video. Actually, first I'm gonna create another layer. Let's add this up here. I'm gonna have several layers. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna have this new layer that I can now work on. And it's gonna be underneath the video layer. And background. As you can see, I like to name my layers, no matter what product I'm in. I think it's a good habit to do, actually. Okay, so let's see. So I kind of mentioned before how YouTube has a really cool way of zigzagging your lines. So I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a line. Oops. Drag one out. Just kind of make it whatever length I want to make it, because I'm going to put it inside of a shape anyway and clip it. So I'm going to give the line a white stroke for now. Let's kind of increase it to 2. Oh, it's behind the video. Let's go ahead and hide the video for now then. Okay, so actually, no, I think 1's probably fine. Cool. So now what you can do is I can go, and I have to kind of remind myself sometimes, but if I go to Effect, go to not Warp, I think Style, nope, not Stylize, Distort and Transform. There we go. There's my zigzag right there. And you can see that it'll automatically turn into a zigzag for you. So it's like a pretty awesome tool. So I can choose how like deep of a zig and a zag I want. And I can change how many zigs to zag. So I'm gonna make this a little bit smaller. Probably gonna add more. I want it to be a little bit more like a smaller kind of a, or more zigzags, I should say. And I'm gonna kind of stack these on top of each other to form a pattern. And I want, yeah, keep that. And that's actually kind of cool too. You can make them smooth corners instead of sharp angles. So, now I'm trying to think if I want them to be smooth or do I want them to be sharp. It's kind of cool looking. You know what? Let's go with the smooth. I kind of like that. And let's see. Okay, I think that's cool for now. We can just keep that as is. And now I'm going to take this and I'm going to drag it down. So I dragged it down a certain amount of space. And now I can just duplicate, similar to Makeswift, right? Like, and now when you duplicate in Illustrator, it just repeats that exact same action you did before. So it does it the same distance, same amount of distance that you moved it. So I can just kind of do that. Another way, actually, I could do this, which is probably a smarter way. So let me actually undo that. This keeps it a little bit more flexible. So I'm actually going to have these two different lines that have the same exact zig on there, zigzag. And I can actually, what's cool about Illustrator is that it doesn't set it permanently. You can even see it's technically still a straight line behind the scenes, but with Illustrator, it puts almost like a filter on it. It's like a zigzag filter. So I can even turn that off and see what it looks like without the zigzag. But I can also go here, double click on the FX, change it as well. So again, that's why I kind of hopped over into Illustrator, because I think it's definitely an easy way to make this kind of effect. So I have selected both these lines. I'm going to go blend. I'm going to do it to make a blend. And you can see it does something very similar to what I did before, but it's actually doing it with essentially Illustrator magic, is the best way I can put it. Where I'm not having to tell it how many lines to do or like how far to go. It just like equally spaces out whatever number of essentially objects you tell it to put in there. So I can also change that if I go to blend options. It says smooth color. I don't know why it does that. It's technically not a smooth color. If I go to specified steps, which is what I'm looking for, now I can actually adjust how many, whoops, I can adjust how many different steps are in there. And if I have the preview on, that'll show me what I change it to as I play with it. So let's see, I'm gonna go to like, let's say, I don't know, 14. And again, so what's cool is like if I take this line down here at the bottom, actually I'll do this so I can kind of show you where the blend is. So I'm opening up the layers. So this line, this is the bottom line, this is the top line. If I take this bottom line and I kind of want to move it down, again, it's equally spacing out those steps. So again, really, really nice feature that has, been in Illustrator for probably, God, I don't know, 20 years, longer than that. I just can't decide if I actually like I might go back to the sharp one. Yeah, let's go back with sharp. Just a feeling I have in my gut. Okay. And just to kind of ensure that I have enough pattern to play with, I'm going to increase the distance between the lines, and then I'm going to actually increase the number of steps as well. So I'm going to increase this from 14, let's say 18, go a little tighter, let's say 20. Okay. So again, this is essentially going to be, behind the video. So it's going to be, the video is going to be like here. So it's going to be kind of peeking out. You know what, man, I know this is me being a perfectionist of some sort of like, maybe I'm going to go back to the curvy. Again, all this stuff always kind of changes once you actually start putting things in place. Okay, so I'm gonna leave it curvy for now. For another 5 minutes until I change it back. Just kidding. Okay, now also what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna take, I wanna take some of the colors that we have that we're gonna use. So I'm gonna use, for this particular one, I think I'm gonna use this bluish color that I've created over here. Let's make both lines that blue color. There we go. Get a little more on brand. And now I'm going to draw a shape. I'm going to draw a rectangle. I'm going to draw it just anywhere for now. Doesn't really matter. This is just to get a rough shape down. And what I'm going to do with this shape is I'm going to create a clipping mask, because I don't want to use this entire pattern. I only want to use part of it. So by having the rectangle on top of the blend, what I can now do is take the blend, or sorry, take the both of them. I'm going to go up to Object, Clipping Mask, and Make. And all that did was it literally used that rectangle as, think of it like a window. So now I have a window in the middle of the rectangle. Everything else around the rectangle is a wall, and it's blocked off, so I can't see what's around it. But what's great is I can just take this window, because it still keeps them separate, just like it did with the blend, and I can just adjust that. So I can make it, you know, a little bit smaller if I want to. So again, just playing around with things. Again, I had the general idea in my head of what to do with this, and now I'm just seeing if it actually works the way my head maybe thought it would. Okay, so you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and leave this one as it is. I don't need to like sit here and toil with it too much. And I'm gonna create my next pattern. So for that one, let's see, I'm actually thinking about whether or not Figma might be good for this one, because I think there's a cool trick I can use in Figma that might make this a little bit easier. So let's do that. So I'm gonna hop back in Figma. And again, I'm just using whatever tool like best fits this scenario. So I don't think there's a wrong way to create any of these tools. Okay, cool, so in here, so I have this purple color. I'm gonna go ahead and just take out the purple color and just make it more of like a white and just like transparent. I just want to be able to kind of have a little, see like kind of a canvas of what I'm working with. So I want to create another box pattern here, but I want to do this with dots instead of squiggly lines. So just doing different patterns, change things up. And to do it, I'm gonna use their auto layout tool. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to make this, I'm gonna add a frame, or wrap this in a frame. And I did that. Basically all I did was I highlighted or selected the rectangle, and I did Command Option G. That's how you wrap any amount of objects you have selected in a frame in Figma. So some Figma tips for you. You're welcome, Figma. And now inside of here, I'm going to create another, actually, you know what? I'm not even gonna create a frame yet. I'm gonna go ahead and just draw a circle. So I'm gonna switch this up to the ellipse tool. I'm gonna draw a circle in here. Let's see. I think I want it to be a little smaller than 10. I think 10 might be too chunky. Gonna make this, let's make it 6. And what I'm gonna do right now is I'm going to, first I'm gonna fill this with a color. I wanna give it that purplish color we had before, purplish pink, whatever you think it looks like. I'm gonna actually make this a component, because what I want is I'm gonna have a bunch of these, and I wanna be able to change them very easily in one place, kind of like we do in Makeswift, where you have your typography, your colors. You know, basically what we're working on in Makeswift is kind of similar ways. We wanna keep things componentized, that way you can make changes in fewer places that take more of an effect across your pages. Okay, so I took that circle. I'm gonna just basically drag another circle, and this just paste an instance of that component. I'm gonna select both, and I'm gonna create an auto layout right here. So now what this does is it treats it more like Makeswift in a way. It uses what we call the box model, and that makes it so now the two circles are aware of each other and they can't overlap each other, so they bump into each other. And if I change the space between them, which I could do right here, then they're gonna start spacing out from each other. And now I'm just gonna start playing with it because I don't know exactly what it's gonna look like. But what I can do now, which is really cool inside of auto layout, is I can just, as I add more and duplicate, it's gonna just start putting them next to each other. So again, it's just a really easy way to start creating this pattern. And I'm not gonna go too far because I don't need to really like fill up. Well, actually I take that back. I kind of do need to fill it more. So I'm gonna just kind of fill it up. And again, just gonna pick a random stopping point. Okay. So that was this one frame, which is now an auto layout frame. I'm gonna call this one a row. And now what I'm going to do is I'm actually gonna take this row, I'm gonna wrap it in a group, give it another auto layout. I want this one to go up and down now. So I had what? I had 8 pixels before. Yeah, so I need this to be also 8 pixels. I want them to be equal. And now let me see, let's make this, call this grid, or I'm gonna call it dot grid. Again, name your layers. You'll be thanking yourself later. So now I can take this row and start duplicating, and you'll see that I now have dots. Wow, almost fit perfectly down at the bottom. Actually, that's kind of scary. Wow. I'm actually freaking myself out a little bit. Sorry. Not so lucky on the right side though. Okay, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna remove this white, actually wait, where is that? Where's that white background? Here somewhere. Here we go, rectangle. So we don't need this rectangle anymore, because I kind of see what I'm working with. Okay, and I'm now zoomed out to 100%, so this is what it would actually look like. So I'm kind of just checking it out, see if this is actually what I want. I think I might want them to be smaller. So what I can do is I can take this one ellipses I have, I'm gonna go and make it 4. That's not what I wanted to happen. There we go. You know what happened? I think kind of a cool little effect started happening, but I think what happened is that it didn't copy over the other ellipses. So let's do this. It's all right. Get rid of this row. I think what happened is that it copied over the circle that was inside of the instance, but not the actual instance itself. So all good. So let's close everything, open it back up. Sometimes it gets a little overwhelming if there's a ton of things that are open, for me at least. Okay, so let's try copying this again. So actually, okay. So I'm gonna do this. Let's change the frame as well. So make sure it matches the circle. Okay, there we go. Now there we go. So now we have the instances applied. Okay. And again, just picking a random stopping point here. Yeah, should be good. Okay, now we can take the row, go with that. Again, kind of random stopping point. And I think it looks a little better. And what I'm gonna do right now, I wanna make a little more space between them. So let's go ahead and just do 10, which I know this seems almost arbitrary, which technically it is. But I feel like it's gonna make me feel better about it. I just want kind of like a more open, a little bit of a lighter pattern. I don't want it to be too heavy, which I think I think this is working. This is kind of getting there. Yeah, this is looking pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good about this one. You know, I don't even need to really wrap this in multiple. It's kind of redundant. Okay, yeah, nice. Okay, so we have this one pattern there. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my Illustrator pattern. You know what? I'm actually going to go ahead and get rid of this clip group. I'm going to go ahead and use the clipping because Figma has a very similar set of tools where you can mask objects within other objects. So I'm going to go ahead and destroy this clipping mask or release it. And just grab the blend. First thing I need to do is actually I need to expand this blend because Figma and Illustrator are obviously different tools. They don't really talk to each other in the same way. So if I try copying and pasting it exactly how it is, it's going to just be straight lines. So it's not going to know there's like a bunch of lines created with this wavy appearance. So I do expand appearance. I then need to do expand the blend. So now it's still lines, but they're like, now they have a lot of points instead of just one point at the beginning, one point at the end. So basically, I just expanded it so it's gonna be readable by Figma. Or should be at least, so let's cross our fingers and hope. So if I copy this, hop to Figma, paste it, okay. So far so good. Okay, cool, now we have all these lines. And for the stroke, actually, I think it remembered the stroke. So I actually got the information from Figma, which is cool. And this needs to go below the, okay, yeah, now we're getting somewhere. Get that right on the line, okay. And I guess what I could technically do is just, you know, if I want less lines up here, I could just also hide these. Or I could even do something similar that I did with the dots and make this an auto layout and they'll be spread out equally as well. Let's see if that works. Actually, I'm just curious. Yeah, kind of does the same thing. And again, if I change that, yeah, that's pretty cool. So that works. Okay. But if I'm looking at this now, I'm not sure I want two rectangular shapes like that. I think I'd rather have one of these be in a circle. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these, turn these back on. I am going to create a circle. Not even sure if this is gonna look great. Again, just experimenting here. Where's this circle at? Okay, so I'm going to put these, okay, this is the lines. We'll call this lines. I'm gonna put these in a group together. We'll call it a wavy background. And I'm gonna make this circle, I'm gonna turn it into a mask. I use this mask. And that is going to take anything above it and basically hide it like I did in Illustrator. So I'm basically creating a window. It's pretty cool. I like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Let's see. You know, what's cool is that I can just take this and, you know, kind of play with it as well. Doesn't have to be. Benefit of always basically keeping your things flexible, as they would say, is non-destructive. Basically, if it's not destroyed or not like finalized in some, you know, finished way, then you can always go back in there and tweak things. And that's how I prefer to work for sure, because Lord knows you get it right the first try. Yeah, we'll go back to 300. Okay. Yeah, let's see. This may be cool. Yeah. I'm curious what it'll look like if we, oops. Let's see what it looks like if we rotate it. Not as cool. Okay. And the other thing that I want to do, just to, actually, you know what, what happens if I make this go above the image? I like it here, okay. All right. So I want to add just a few more, couple minor elements. Just want to add some like simple rectangles or squares that have the green color. Just kind of pull in that accent color, make it a little more visually interesting. Nope, don't go inside there. Let's see, I want to make sure you're both behind the video. Not sure if I'm feeling it as much, so I think I'm gonna just go and delete them for now. Yeah, I think let's just leave the pattern. But I'm actually gonna go and do, I'm gonna wrap this in another frame. And that way I'm gonna clip the content. And I can start just hiding some of this. I don't want it to be quite as large. Okay. Minor, but it did something. I really do want to add some of that green back in there. Well, let's try it again. Maybe if I could do something a little bit different. You know what, let's just ignore it for now. Come back to it later. I can always add to it. But, okay, so now what I'm gonna do is actually I'm gonna apply this pattern, and I'm gonna show you how to apply both this dot pattern and this wavy pattern behind the video onto the box that we already added into Makeswift. So first thing, I need to kind of set things up a little bit more, so bear with me. So, okay, so for this wavy background, yes, basically I wanna combine all these elements into their own frame. And I'm going to use this frame as essentially kind of a, basically like the canvas to export these. So I now know where they're going to be in relation to the frame, meaning the patterns themselves. So this one's going to be in the top right. What I'm planning to do is I'm going to plan to do the wavy pattern as a separate layer than the dot background pattern. There'll be two different layers. The wavy pattern will be basically its own, it'll be in the top right on its own layer, and the dot pattern will be on the bottom left on its own layer as well. And that way they'll always be in those corners, and they won't be like tied to each other as much. So first, let's go ahead and call this, I'm gonna do the dot pattern first. So I'm kind of setting these up actually. So let's see, wavy pattern. Oops. I'm gonna hide the wavy pattern. And this frame, gonna do just the dot patterns. I'm gonna call this one dot pattern. So when I export this, let's see. You know what, sorry, take that back. I'm gonna export this one on its own. Yeah. So now all this has included is the left spacing. So I'm gonna kind of include that in this SVG. Again, figuring things out as I'm doing it. That's part of the fun of building a page in Makeswift, is kind of figuring out how to export everything and make all the puzzle pieces fit. Okay, so I'm exporting this dot pattern. And then I'm going to turn back on the wavy pattern. And I want to include the space above it for this one. So what I'm going to do with that is I'm going to wrap this. Yeah, let's see. Let's wrap this in a frame. I can actually get rid of the group. Is that the frame? Nope, too high. Okay, that's fine. Doesn't have to be perfect. Call this wavy pattern, and let's export this as an SVG as well. Again, we want to keep those nice crisp lines. And I've left the stroke on this one rather than for all the lines, rather than making them. Actually, you know what? This is definitely going to come out wrong with Figma. I think that happens a lot of times. So I'm actually going to have to do this. I'm going to need to go ahead and expand all these lines. So I'm going to go ahead and I've set up a quick key. I believe it's a Shift Command O. So now they're actually shapes, like layer, like filled shapes, as opposed to strokes. Yep, looks good still. And I'm going to take the lines. I'm actually going to combine them all into a single layer. So I'm using the union up top. And I think just working hard just to get them all there. What happened there? Let's try that again. Not sure what happened. Okay, that works. So I flattened it instead. For some reason I liked it better. I'm gonna take out the group. And I'm gonna now use this other version, subtract selection here. I guess Figma's, this might be a little too much work for Figma, since it's kind of like it's a large pattern. It did not like that either. You know what, let me try removing the mask. Let me go back and get rid of the mask first. That could have been the problem. Okay, let's try this again. So remove mask. And I think I actually had this on the wrong operation. So I actually want to do intersect selection. Let's see if that works with Figma. Yeah, I think that's what I was running to Miguel. I think it was the order for sure. Plus choosing the wrong one. I could have put the circle on top. You know what it looks like? It's just not wanting to do its thing. What happens if I flatten? No, totally gets rid of it. So, backup plan. Trying to undo. There we go. again, like I said, let's try it one more time. I'm gonna try to do the other subtract. This is probably just one of those examples of, I'm sure I'm just pushing Figma. I can try the mask, Miguel. The only problem that I see sometimes that I've experienced with exporting an SVG with the mask in Figma is that for whatever reason, the browser doesn't love the SVG file and it won't actually show what I want it to show. But let's try it. Let's make this a mask. Maybe it's not too crazy right now. And let's see what happens. Okay. Let's export this. And let's see. So I'm gonna go. Okay, it looks like it might be fine. So let's cross our fingers and hope that it shows up. All right, so back inside of Makeswift, I'm gonna go to this video background box that I created. And I'm gonna add 2 background layers. Let's first upload our images. I'm just gonna upload them directly in here. So we have our 2 patterns. We have the dot pattern and we have the wavy pattern. Okay, so far so good. So I'm gonna do the dot pattern first, double click, and I'm gonna change a few of the options. For one, I want it to be pinned on the bottom left corner. Second is I don't want to use our default stretch to cover. I want it to be the actual size that I originally created it at. So I'm gonna go to the first option, which is use image size. And you'll see now it's pinned to the bottom left. And we're essentially done with that part. So now I'm gonna create another background layer. I'm gonna pick the wavy pattern, do the same exact thing. I'm gonna pin to the top right this time and just use image size itself. And the reason you're seeing through it right now is because the actual image or video placeholder is essentially a see-through SVG as well. So for that, what we need to do is, I'm actually just gonna put in an actual video. So let me go find the video really quickly. Let's use a Vimeo video. Actually, you know what, let's grab one of our Makeswift videos. Oops, didn't mean to go there. There we go. And I'm just gonna let's just grab this video here. And I'm gonna grab the URL. And paste it here. There we go. And at least now we can get a better view of what it would look like. So I'm just kind of adding more of that. You know, instead of doing that, instead of using the inner spacing, I'm actually on the left and right, I'm going to need to change the video width and make that just be smaller. Let's do 1,000. Let's do, I guess I had 960, or let's do 960 then. There we go. Okay. Okay, there we go. And actually, you know what? This is peeking from the top, but I'm not minding it too much, so I might keep it that way. Yeah. That's pretty good. Okay, so there you go. So like you saw, so basically using a box, putting that video inside of the box, I was able to add some design elements to behind that video. And again, by having 2 different layers, I can keep them separate. And now I could even, if I want to, I could like even switch them. If I wanted the circle to be at the bottom and the dots to be at the top right. So again, just kind of keeping that flexibility. I'm gonna go ahead and close the gap here because we've basically added gap with the top of the video, so we don't really need it anymore. Okay. So I'm not gonna worry about this image at the top because that's gonna take me more time to kind of create a design. But what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to basically start making sure this looks good on tablet and mobile. So I'm gonna start doing it, checking out all the responsive, which again is what we kind of just put the video I put in here, but I'm gonna be designing responsively now. So just giving kind of a quick glance over everything. Oh, you know, actually I just noticed that all these things, I'm gonna kind of, let's just clear these, all these things here. Don't need them to be what they are. Probably fine to leave the width, but I'm just a little more particular about that. If it doesn't need to be set, no need to set it. And the reason I'm clearing out all these bottom margins is that we're using the gap inside of the actual box that's wrapping all the feature boxes. So again, it's kind of like one more thing that I don't want to have to be guessing where the spacing is coming from. I want one place to kind of control that space. So now you'll see this box here. I know exactly what's controlling the space, and I can just change it right here. So that's probably actually a little bit better for how it to be. All right. So actually I can close this gap a lot too. Don't need to have all this. So again, just making sure this looks good on desktop first. You might be designing for mobile first, which is totally fine. Definitely do that. Typically for us, for me, most of the things that we're designing are usually desktop first. That's not to say, I know that, you know, mobile first is definitely that movement, and this is not going against that at all. It's just to say that for the way our builder works is desktop down to mobile, so just it's a little bit easier to build it first inside of desktop. Okay. So I think this looks pretty good. Looks like a real template for a startup. And now I'm going to start designing it for mobile devices and for tablet. So first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to switch to tablet mode. And we're going to start seeing that things are going to start looking a little bit weird, not as good. So now I'm going to start deciding what things I want to be stacked, if I want to keep things next to each other, how many columns, so on and so on. First thing I want to do is I want to fix this font for the main header here. So when we initially styled it, we only did it for desktop. So I need to now style it for tablet as well. Again, a lot of fonts, a lot of styles, most of your styles will carry from desktop down to mobile. So most things you don't have to, you might have to tweak a little bit, but you're not gonna have to start from scratch, is what I'm saying. So over here, trying to remember what exactly we had set for. We had 66, so I don't want to be using 66. I'll probably end up using 48, like we used for the header 2. Gonna bring this line height down a little bit. Actually, I think what I want to do too is I want to have these be on different lines. I think it's not going to look good. Whatever image I'm going to have here is going to be kind of small looking compared to the actual text I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that down. And it's going to be on its own row. So that looks better already in my opinion. I'm going to close the gap right here. So again, you know, for desktop, I like to use, I'm also someone who likes to use a lot of space. So on my desktop templates, I might have a lot of space between sections. But, you know, once you get smaller devices, you don't want half your screen to just be nothing but space. So make sure you're closing that gap. And I'm just picking 80 just to kind of to have that work for now. So I'm going to then also, I'm gonna make this one a little bit smaller. Go ahead and 22 on tablet. Kind of close the line height a little bit. And you'll see that I'm kind of leaving these at the moment overridden, which is what the yellow means it's been overridden. That, you know, you have your styles that you've set and saved, but when you make a change, we're keeping what you haven't overridden, like the font and the weight, but you can make overrides and keep it that way too. So again, flexibility, we kind of give you that. And I'm gonna also just close the gap a little bit. Again, I'm just kind of, at this point, you really are probably just tweaking spacing and stacking is what I would say most of responsive design is inside of Makeswift. Okay, so that looks good. And I'm actually, once I style this for mobile, I'm then going to go in and actually save and update the typography to make sure it saves it for tablet and for mobile. So rather than doing it twice, I'll just do it once at the end, if I can remember to do so. And now for the fonts down here, I'm going to stack them. So you sometimes, I mean, this can be a little annoying, but this happens, when you have a smaller row and it's kind of hard to get to that dashed line. What I need to do, what you need to do, is the best thing I've found to do is to take one of the items in here, one of the elements, and just add a bunch of bottom margin, and that's just gonna be temporary. And now what that lets me do is it actually lets me click on these dash lines. So bit of a workaround, it works. And then I just drag this one up. And now we actually need to add, we had column gap ready, but we want to add that row gap to make sure that they're not touching each other. Okay. And if we want, I'd say, let's go ahead and bring these closer together so there, there's not as much space between them. And let's close this gap as well. Let's do it even more. Okay. Okay, so same thing down here where I believe on desktop we have 48 pixels set. I'm gonna change this to 36. It's kind of a random number. It's pretty common number to set for values, so that's why I use that. Oh, welcome Omnist and Jay Isaac. Appreciate you guys joining. Okay, so, and since this one is used a couple times on the page, I am going to go ahead and update it so that way I can see what it looks like on both parts. And when I update this, welcome. Yep. No, all good, good. Appreciate it. We're gonna hopefully have this in the template library for you guys to use very soon. So I'm gonna go ahead and confirm and update this. Okay. And you'll see down here that actually this changed as well since they were both using the heading 2. Okay. So I'm going to close the gap here. And you'll see now the patterns have kind of changed a little bit as far as how they work with this. So what we could do, again, I'm just kind of, eyeballing stuff and make the video a little bit smaller so you can still get a little bit of this peak from the patterns. I'm going to let's get rid of the inner spacing on this box. Actually, I'm going to get rid of it on desktop. Our boxes come with default inner spacing, and sometimes it's helpful, and sometimes I just don't want it there because it kind of throws me off. So I'm just going to get rid of it for this one. Now it's going to cascade down and not be in there. Okay. So obviously sometimes the things you do on desktop might not carry over as well to tablet and mobile, which is fine. I'm going to test out, I'm going to make this pattern go to the top left. Let's see what happens if we make this dot pattern. Okay, if I change it to contain, that's actually going to make it smaller, which is nice, kind of what I want. Yeah, that's a little better. Okay, so again, it's not like an exact science or anything, but I think it definitely does the job. Yeah, it works. Let's see, I might make the video a little bit. Actually, I'll make it smaller. Yeah. Another option too that I could do is I can create a different dot pattern altogether. It's probably the better thing to do, and that way I can make it more specific for tablet, and then I could just come in here, remove that layer, add a new image layer, and it's going to save it just for tablet and for mobile. So that is one thing you could do. Yeah, it does. Yeah, exactly. So almost every single thing you see on the right side, especially, not things including like the, video links or, anything that's like text, but anything that's a style. Yeah, anything that's a style is going to save it just for that device. And like I said, first it's always going to cascade down from desktop, so it'll automatically pull from it. But if you specifically tell it to be a different width, so for example, if I click the X here, it's pulling from desktop to be 960. But if I want to say, you know what, I want it to be a max of 580. Now it's gonna be set just for tablet, and then again cascade down to mobiles. Yeah, you can definitely do that. This is Evan, by the way. Hey, hey, yeah, nice to meet you, man. I've never actually met you yet. Just heard your name a lot. In good ways, in good ways. Don't worry. Alrighty. So obviously this is looking kind of jacked up on tablet. So let's fix this really quickly. So I think what I'm gonna do here is for tablet, I'm gonna stick with the probably like 2 columns for each one. And luckily, since I have 8 items in total, this should look stack up pretty well. Again, same trick I used before, where I'm just basically clicking on this vertical dashed line. And what this does now is that if I go back to desktop and I'm clicking 1 to switch to desktop, but again, you can do it from up here as well. By clicking on these lines, you change the stacking order, or not really the order, you change how it's stacked, I should say, because the orders actually, you can't do that, but it'll change how it's stacked and whether it is or not stacked. So this is a like clutch feature to use for sure. So I'm gonna go in tablet. Yeah, so if you just click on that dashed line, and honestly, this, it might not be as intuitive at first as I think, I think there's not many of the tools that use it this way, or that have that kind of feature built in, like in that exact kind of way. So hopefully, some tutorials and videos like this will help people understand. I think once you know it, you're good to go. But it might be a little hard to figure out at first, but we're willing to show you guys. And if I quickly switch over to it, yeah. No, yeah, good question. So this is actually just a box. And we always tell people the box is probably the most important component that we have inside of our tool, because there's so many different features that a box can do for you. I just named this one, so when you start off, it would just say box by default. Whoops. But so yeah, this is a box. It's basically like a box inside of another box, and each one of these items is another box in there. So you'll see these dashed lines on every single box that you click on inside of Makeswift. Yeah. So basically, if you ever want to, if you want to like, basically when you're laying things out, the box is what you use to lay things out. If you want to group things together, again, the reason I grouped each of these items in a box is so they would stay together. So when I'm breaking them up like this, they're going to stay together. Because a lot of times I've seen people not quite understand how to use the box, and they'll kind of put like, basically like, they'll have like one row of images and they'll have a row of text. And then when you start breaking it up on tablet, you just basically have 4 images next to each other. So again, use those boxes and group them together. Basically, yeah. Yeah, I mean, basically a box is just another word for div. That's basically what we're calling it. Kind of just abstracting a little bit, making it a little less scary sounding, but it is basically a div. Yeah. 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 It definitely is. Yeah. HTML5 introduced that. I will say at the moment, and basically for anyone on YouTube, Evan is asking me if like there's, and sorry, I'm not repeating questions. I'm learning how to do all this live streaming stuff. But anyone on YouTube, Evan is asking about semantic HTML. So div is like the common way that most HTML is set up with, but now in the last many years they've introduced ways to name it more semantically. So you could have like a figure or a sidebar. Or, these aren't exactly the correct names, but like he said, main section. At the moment, you can't do that inside of Makeswift. There's not even really a way to like hack it I would say, if I'm being honest. I think we've talked about that, and we eventually want to add maybe like an advanced panel inside of the box that would let you choose one of those options. So if you want to choose one of those semantic HTML tags, you could just open up a drop down and do it that way, or create your own custom one, something like that. So we've thought about it a little bit, but at the moment, I don't think there's really any way you can do it aside from adding an embed component and literally custom coding yourself, which is not what you want to be doing, you know, if you're using our tool, at least not for that kind of thing. Yeah, but good question though. Definitely a good question. I mean, again, and that's one of those feature requests that we love to get, and we'll for sure add it to our what we call our problem documents. That is things that people can't do. For sure. For sure. And actually, speaking of now, I think I need to come up here and tweak this a little bit. So let me do that. So it's a little bit. You know what? I didn't actually even know that. So I appreciate that, Miguel. Yep. TIL. Sure. So I'm gonna actually come. The logo is kind of close to the navigation. Obviously, if I add another navigation item or the logo happens to be wider than what it is right now, they're gonna kind of butt up against each other. So I don't want that to happen. So let's go ahead and make this a kind of like a hamburger menu. So I'm gonna choose cover from right. That's gonna condense the navigation into this one hamburger menu. So when you actually click on this icon, it'll open it up in a tray. And I'm gonna make the open icon color. Let's see. Let's go ahead. Let's make it use this reddish purple color. And then for the close color, let's see, for the background, I'm going to use this blue. Again, I'm kind of just like, I won't say randomly picking, but in my head imagining what it would look like. And I think it would look pretty good, especially with, since the text will still be white for the links and the button will still be green. So I'm trying to think of what would look good on that background. So I think it would show up pretty well in the blue. Again, you could also change those individual items. If I want to go in here and change it just for tablet and mobile, I could do that too. So if you want them to all be different colors, if you want them to all look like buttons on mobile, you could do that. I'm just kind of leaving them as it is at the moment. Okay, oh, sorry, let me go back here and make sure I finished up. So the close icon color. So let's go ahead and make this one. So that's blue. I'll go ahead and make it white. That way you can see it. And yeah. That'll look good. Okay, let's actually, I want to close a little bit more. Okay, a little better. Okay. All right, so we finished this feature section. Let me actually close the gap of some of these items. Don't need to be. Let's see. Okay. So I was checking some comments from my teammates. Okay, so we close that gap. Column gap, I think we're probably pretty good on column gap. I don't think we need to really change it. I think it's probably okay. And just so everyone's aware, for tablet, the width of the tablet is actually tablet in portrait mode. So it's 768. It's not the landscape tablet mode. So just so you know. Our plan is to eventually add custom breakpoints. So you'll be able to actually select or set which breakpoints you want. So if you want to add landscape tablet, landscape mobile, you'll be able to do that as well. All right, so down to the Twitter wall. Let's close up the gap. And let's start breaking up these columns. So, you know, just as a reminder, each one of these, there are literally 3 columns that you see that I've grouped those tweets into. So I'm going to use the vertical dash line and I'm going to start clicking to break those up into different, essentially to stack them all. And I'm going to take the row gap, so I'm going to make it 20, and now I'm going to go into each one of these boxes and change that row gap to be 20 as well. I don't want them to be as much as they were. They were 30. It's a little bit, seems like a little bit much to me. Oops, 25, 20. Okay. And, okay. So now we have all our tweets stacked up on top of each other. And, you know, again, maybe depending on your design, maybe they kind of are stacked up, you know, in 2 columns. That could be one way you do it as well. For the purpose of this, because I had them in 3 columns, I think, yeah, it'd be a little bit much to have them be, unless I maybe had like a 4th column. It's possible. Yeah, man, you know, I could do something like that. You know what, why not? Let's switch it up. Let's do that. Let's duplicate this one. Let's move this. So I'm kind of going to drag this box and move it over to the right side. Change the order up just for the sake of design. Okay, so this is a very popular product right here then, with even more tweets. But yeah, that doesn't seem too crazy. So if we switch back to tablet, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure I select Twitter grid. And it's a little hard to see them, but you know, it's just with the color. But if you find the horizontal line, you find it there. I'm going to bring this one back up. And let's see. Actually, is this going to do what I'm hoping it does? Not quite. It's not quite the same. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, because they're still basically grouped in columns and I'm stacking them. So now I'm not going to be able to have that kind of nice gap that fills in no matter what. I'd have to like basically use visibility to do that, and I don't want to do that with this. It would get kind of messy. So let's go ahead and back up. Let's go back to just 3 columns. Keep it real simple. And back in tablet, we'll just keep it stacked like this. I think that'll be just fine. And let's close up the CTA text. At the moment, no. The only thing we do have, our carousel does, you know, it is a carousel, but it only works for images. So we don't have like a free content, you know, whatever you want to put in there. Eventually, you know, not to just keep saying it, but eventually we want to do have a carousel that allows you to drop in content. You can compose things inside the carousel. But at the moment, our carousel is just for images. And let's see, I don't think I ever added a gap here. I'm going to add this gap. There we go. Okay, so now the gap is pushing this out. Let's bring that gap back to 0 again. Okay. And actually, I think what's happening is the button width is actually taking up too much of it. So I'm actually going to make that button width smaller, just to make sure it fits a little better. Yeah, okay. That's a little better. Okay, and then I'm going to bring the text just a little closer. All right, that was the heading 2. Oh yeah, actually back up here. You know, I probably don't need to change these. I think these look okay at the moment. If you find like they're a little large, you know, I could, well, let's go ahead and tweak it. Why not? Make it 26, and let's update heading 3. Okay. All right, so that is tablet. And now I'm going to switch to mobile. And luckily, a lot of the work's gonna be done for me because we kind of already got started with this, with tablet. So I had this before at 48. Let's go ahead and make this 36. Again, just kind of picking a nice number there. Let's update it. Looks like a little bug. Get Miguel to fix that. We're still in early access, so obviously we still have a few bugs here and there. Okay, go back to mobile. Okay. All right, back to mobile. So we have that text styled. This one's a little small, so we're gonna make this, let's make it 20. It was 22 for tablet. And let's see, I'm gonna close up the gap. Again, like I said, this is majority of your mobile editing experience, in my opinion, is basically just closing the gaps. If you're laying your page out in the most optimal way, that hopefully should be all you're doing. Sometimes you might need to rearrange things or use visibility to, you know, switch the order of elements, but you know, that's probably more of a rare scenario. Okay, let's make this one a little bigger. Let's see what I have it on tablet. I have it as 36. Let's go ahead and make it 28. Oops. 28. Okay. All right. And again, let's bring this gap up as well. I think these logos look fine. I mean, maybe could do it like this where I have them, you know, two different columns, but you know, just for the sake of saving space, I might just keep them like this. But I'm probably gonna, with this one, I could do a carousel. You're right, actually. That is actually very true. You know what, Evan, just because you said that, let's go ahead and do a carousel. No, actually, I think it's a good thing to show people. So, no, I appreciate that. So, yeah, so Evan is suggesting for everyone on YouTube that if you want to save space even more, and actually, here's kind of a cool thing I kind of realized the other day with the carousel using it, is that, let's do this. So I'm gonna actually, instead of even having these images be separate like that, let's go ahead and let's pop in a carousel. I don't ever say no to a challenge, Evan, all right? Gotta accept the challenge. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add 6 images here. So I'm basically gonna just replicate what we have there. And again, if it's a carousel, you could add 20 images, it doesn't really matter. But for the sake of this, I'm gonna kind of replicate it for desktop. So desktop will almost look the exact same, but on smaller devices, it'll actually rotate. So let's really quickly just pop in some of these images. Let's see, Airbnb. Where are you at? Dropbox. Spotify. Sana and Google. Okay, last one. And Google. Okay. Great. So I'm going to get rid of arrows. Don't want any arrows. Let's see. Not going to worry about the opacity at the moment for the images. Actually, I don't even know if we can change it right here. I don't think we can. So never mind. So we'll leave them white for now, which is totally fine. gonna increase the width of the carousel. Let's make it full width. I want to show all 6 images. Let's change the gap. So you lose a little bit of flexibility, obviously, because you're like, you know, you don't have access to every single image in the same way you do individually, like as far as width of each image goes and things like that. And you can still set alt tags, you know, have links for each image. So you still have some control for sure, which is definitely good, but not, you know, you can't individually add a border to a sign or something like that. You have to do it to all of them or none of them. But again, for this sake, I think this will be totally fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and just actually, let's just delete this, these logos here. Don't need them anymore. Okay, cool. So, and for this one, I'm actually gonna not show the dots because we don't need it for here. And then on tablet, I'm gonna switch there. So it's a little small. So let's increase that size. Oops, there we go. And here's where some of the carousel magic comes in, is that now I might want to show just like 3 logos. Let's say 4. And we can show the dots. We can make the dot colors as kind of a blue. You also don't have to show the dots if you don't want to. You could just kind of leave it. Maybe I'll make it even more subtle than that. Just a little bit more, just to give you a little visual cue that there's more there. But again, you could also just leave the dots not even there if you don't want to. Let's change the gap some. And you could even turn on autoplay. You know, if you wanted to like just start swiping automatically, change it like 3 seconds, you can see it in action. There we go. And then if we go to mobile, let's maybe change it to just like 2 images. Oops. Yeah, so there you go. So we have, you know, make this maybe a little bit smaller. And maybe you could even make it show, you know, swipe 2 images at a time if you don't want it to be like as many dots there. So yeah, so that is, so appreciate that, Evan. It's definitely a good way to basically show many images at a single time, or not a single time, I guess, you know, without having to show them all, and how, like, you know, if you want to have 12 different logos, but not have to have all that space taken up. So there you go. So I appreciate that suggestion. Yeah. All right. So going back down, okay, so we're getting some funky stuff with down here. So a little bit of overlay, but you know, it's kind of like a little, as Bob Ross would say, happy little accident. Let's see, we can maybe change this to be contain. Yeah, it's a little bit smaller. What happens if we make the dot pattern go on the top right? Yeah, there you go. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah, I'll keep it at the bottom. Yeah, but I think that actually looks pretty good. Close that gap a little bit. Actually, that's pretty good. Okay, so down to these feature buckets. They are definitely not looking great because they're super skinny. And on some phones, they'll be even skinnier. So let's go ahead and use that same breaking method by clicking on the dashed lines. Again, super easy. If you wanted to, for some reason, you could have like 1, 2, 1, 2, make a little hopscotch pattern. But for this sake, we're gonna just put them all on their own row. That looks pretty good. If I want to, I might make the row gap a little bit smaller. And again, so I love row gap. So, you know, the alternative to doing this is to, you know, obviously having space below every single text or on the box. There's ways you could do that if you want to get, you know, by maybe increasing the padding here. Personally, I think the row gap is just so much nicer to have it in one place and just change it there. So I personally like doing it that way. So if you guys haven't like played with the gap controls yet, I would highly suggest doing so. Okay, yeah, looking pretty good. Oops, just want to close that gap here. And again, sometimes you might want to have a little more control over like just one gap in particular, which is why I have this one separate outside of the Twitter ones, the Twitter bubbles, because that way I want to be able to change just that gap. Okay, and then just down to the bottom, home stretch here. Same thing, let's stack this on top of each other. Let's go for maybe, let's see, I'm gonna change take away some of that padding. It's a little bit too much. And let's add some spacing between text and the button. Let's make the button, yeah, let's do left line. Yeah, that looks good. All right, so there we go. We have our mobile version of this homepage. And like I said, if you switch back to all these devices, you'll see that these are stacked in the same way they were before, 2 items to a row. You'll see even the images behind the video are kind of a little bit of different sides. Obviously the carousel is a little different. So yeah, I mean, there you go. And the desktop looks just like how we left it. And I'm gonna close this gap a little bit. Again, I'm always kind of just tweaking things here and there. It's never, ever done. I wanna make sure I'm not taking up too much space. All right. So there we go. I think that covers our first live stream. Like I said, I plan on creating more pages for this template. So maybe I'll do that on Thursday, actually. Probably a good way to do that. Continue this particular template. Create a features page, maybe like a pricing page, about page. Give you guys a good head start if you want to use this template and not have to, just use one page and create your own other pages or secondary pages, but actually be able to use ones that we give you. So appreciate everyone joining inside the Discord chat. So thanks, Evan, for hopping in and giving some good suggestions and questions. And Jay Isaac, thanks for joining as well. If anyone's watching on YouTube, thanks for watching on YouTube. Again, we're going to be back here on Thursday, and the plan is every Tuesday and Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern time. So keep watching, and these videos will be posted on YouTube as well. So thanks a lot, guys.